Um, okay, so where are we going to start? Okay, first of all, let me start talking about my thumbnail. From the New York Post, nearly 1 million illegal immigrants have self-deported under Trump, and the wages are going up. The wages are going up. So not only, and I'll get to the point where this overwhelmingly hurts men, immigration, but it's also hurting men that want a family. It's also hurting men that want to have a wife in the home and raise their children in the home and educate their kids in the home and finding the wives and the girlfriends that are traditional and all that stuff. All that stuff. It literally has everything to do with it. Don't doubt me. I've got proof coming. Anyway, New York Post, wages are going up, everybody. Hey, what do you know? When you have to actually pay people based on our laws here in the United States, and they need to have paperwork, you can't pay them under the table, and you can't hurt their wages. And so wages are going up. Well, color me surprised. You know, the left is always screaming about, we need to have a livable wage. Okay, get rid of all the people that'll do it for less than actual legally allowed, and you're gonna get rid of a bunch of them. Anyway, they say while ICE arrests, let me zip up the font size so you can see it. While ICE arrests and deportations have grabbed headlines, President Trump's also running a separate but complementary mass deportation program, one that encourages aliens here unlawfully to go home voluntarily. And if reports are correct, that plan is more successful than anyone could have imagined. Based on government data, my organization, the Center for Immigration Studies, has conservatively estimated there are about 15.4 million illegal aliens in the United States, a 50% increase over the 4 tumultuous years of the Biden administration. Anyway, I don't want to get into the politics. It's not about Trump and it's not about Democrats and all that. It's more important that we just talk about literally the people being here. And I'm going to get to that here. They say, now it's not huge numbers, but it is a start. Let me find where they're talking about the dollar amounts here. One way to track the programs by checking unemployment numbers. One financial whiz cited by the Wall Street Journal calculated a decline in the immigrant population of 773,000 in the first 4 months of Trump round number 2. And they say the average hourly wages accelerated, rising by 0.4% over the month to $36.24 in May, as earnings continue to beat inflation in a boost to workers' spending power. In other words, with fewer illegal immigrants, businesses have had to raise wages to attract workers. Let me just say this very quickly, okay? I'm not a financial expert. I think any of you know that, especially if you've listened to me at any amount of time. You know I'm not an expert on anything, literally. But when you have a business and if your product is in high demand, you charge more and make more money. Or you can produce more items and charge less and just sell more of it, right? Supply and demand. Same thing goes with workers. If you have Americans and recently new immigrants, and you have recently new illegal immigrants that aren't supposed to be here, and you have this influx of workers, you can be picky and choosy. You've got lots of people to choose from. And so then you just go ahead and say, well, I'll take the illegals under the table. Maybe nobody will notice. We can pay them less. Well, the same thing happened in Nebraska. Okay, and I'm going to get to how this is specifically a men's issue in just a moment. How a city in Nebraska is recovering after the state's largest worksite immigration raid. This is from Meatpacking, which is overwhelmingly a man's job. They say every seat in the waiting area of Glen Valley Foods was occupied with people filling out job applications early Thursday afternoon, 2 days after the meatpacking plant became the center of the largest worksite immigration raid in the state of Nebraska so far this year. Dozens of prospective employees, many of them Spanish speakers, had been coming in and out of the plant all day. Some were hoping to land a new job. Others were coming in for training. The scene gave the company's president, Chad Hartman, a glimmer of hope among the chaos that ensued after Tuesday's raid purged roughly half of his staff, many of whom had been longtime employees of the company, which had been processing boxed beef for more than 15 years. So this is what's so crazy. ICE comes in, the illegals get arrested, and they're removed. And then the Spanish-speaking likely Mexican immigrants that are here legally said, hey, I would like a job. I'd like a job. And so they came in and they took the jobs that the illegals had. The difference is that these guys are legal. They waited in line. They did the right thing. They probably have families here maybe by this point in time. And they're going to get paid a living wage because they must, based on federal law. And they're going to pay taxes and all the good things that go along with it. And then the number that, I want you to hear this number because this is kind of important. From CBS News, millions of men have dropped out of the workforce, leaving companies struggling to fill jobs. It's a matter of our national identity. And they say not in the workforce, ages men 25 to 54, 7.2 million. Now, I want you to listen to the 7.2 million number because that's pretty critical. 7.2 million. So I asked Grok, and this is what this has to do with dating men and men that want families and men that want a livable wage and men that want to buy homes and all the things that men complain about, okay? I said, what jobs are primarily held by illegal immigrants in the United States? Break them up by jobs held by mostly men and the ones held primarily by women, okay? Jobs primarily held by men who often dominate manual labor and high-risk occupations. They're overrepresented in the following sectors and roles among undocumented workers. Construction, 1.3 million workers. 1.3 million workers. Now, here's the other thing, too. It says right here, I forgot to read this. According to sources like the Pew Research Center, the U.S. Census Bureau, and the American Community Survey, undocumented immigrants estimate at around 7.6 million people in the workforce. 7.6 million. Millions of men not working in the labor force. 7.2 million men. Do you see an overlap? It's almost the exact same identical number. 7.2 million men not in the working force. 7.6 million illegal immigrants working. There's overlap here. So the jobs that were held by men, construction, drywall installers, roofers, construction painters, brick masons, laborers, carpenters, those are good paying jobs traditionally for men. Those are good paying jobs. Agriculture, farm work, vegetable picking, horrible jobs, I agree. But nonetheless, it's a supply and demand. If they don't have any workers and the farmers need to have their fields picked, they will either get robots to do it, which is actually becoming a thing now. They've got these tractors that have AI on them that can detect and zap weeds, and they still can pluck stuff out of the ground. And they'll either go that way or they'll hire American workers, one of the two. But if you say, oh, it's such an awful job that no American men will do it, why should we subject illegal immigrants to it? I mean, honest question. Food production, right? Food processing, meat packing workers. Meat packers, I mean, if you go back to the original Rocky movie, when did that come out? 1976 or 78? Rocky was a meat packer. Meat packing has been an American job, I mean, as far as a backbone American job for 50 years at least, plus, you know? Maintenance and repair, grounds maintenance workers, auto repair workers. I don't know about you, we've you know, auto repair is, again, another good paying job. Transportation and material moving, taxi drivers, delivery drivers, warehouse workers, and OTR truckers. All these things are jobs men have always done. Men have always done these jobs. They used to be able to support a family on these jobs. But now when you bring in illegals to do these jobs, they're not hiring American men anymore. This is the hollowing out of the blue class worker. And I'm not saying that these are dreams that every young man these are not jobs that every young man dreams of doing, but they are serviceable jobs that most men can do that will, when they're not going out to illegal immigrants, will pay at least a man enough he can support himself. Maybe he's not having a pool and a spare Ferrari in the garage, but he can support himself. How many men out there today are complaining, I can't even support myself. I can't find a job. And when I first started working, you know, my first job was in fast food. I was 15 or 16 years old, and I worked at a Burger King part-time after school so I could make a little bit of money so I could pay for insurance on my car that my father let me use. I didn't even get my own car. It was his car. I got to borrow it, but I had to pay for my own insurance on the car, and I had to put gas in it because he wanted me to learn a work ethic. So at 15 years old, I got a job working at Burger King, and I think minimum wage back then was something like $3.75 or something. It was not much. but I could also get hired as a kid. Now today, when they're forcing these $15 minimum wage down on everybody, if I walked in and said, "Hey, I'm 15 and I'd like a job," and they say, "Well, you can only work, X amount of hours a week. You can only work certain hours because you're a student. You can only work until a certain time at night. You're not old enough to touch, I don't know, silverware and cutting implements, and you can't work the fryer because of other laws that keep me from doing that." Before you know it, they say, "We're not going to hire you at 15." And then a young man can't begin his work, at least building up his resume and getting a little spending scratch. And so we need to get rid of these laws, and we need to get rid of the people that are forcing this. Because if a young man goes and says, "I will work for minimum wage at fast food just so I can start working," these were never supposed to be jobs that can support a family. So these lazy people, or these, I don't know if I can even say lazy, maybe these people that don't want to aspire to be anything greater than a fast food worker, then you get what you're qualified for. Now, what are the jobs held by women? So the jobs that are being replaced by men, these are good paying physical labor jobs, right? These are jobs that men that don't have a high education but are hardworking and are go-getters can at least get started off in an industry. And they just said in this other article that the average hourly rate was $36.24 for a lot of these jobs. That's $72,000 a year. That's a lot of money. Service sector roles: maids and house cleaners, janitors, cleaners, personal care aides, home health aides. So they're taking the jobs of mostly women that would have stayed in the home. Maids and house cleaners, that used to be a woman's role in the home if she was a stay-at-home mom. Janitor, cleaner, same thing. They say 1/5 of low-skilled, undocumented workers are maids or cleaners. Now, granted, I know this is also in hotels and the service industry. That's all fine. But they are roles that women used to do in homes. Because you hear all these women, like on the View, these cackling hens, who's going to clean your toilets and cook your dinners and clean your home? Well, the woman should be, traditionally speaking. But the women in the home are being replaced by illegal immigrants. And then the women that were supposed to be staying in the home are going out and competing with men for jobs, which is also lowering the wage for men. Childcare and domestic work roles: nannies, babysitters, and housekeepers. Who used to have the role of taking care of their own babies? Mothers. Babysitters. Well, moms, babies, or the young gal next door that was maybe in school. Housekeeping, women. So these illegal immigrants are replacing the women's job specifically in the home. So women can go out and work and be a boss bitch. Retail and sales, cashiers and sales associates, that's fine. Now, I said, okay, because a lot of you guys are not in the United States, what about other countries? I asked, is this job information about the same for the UK, EU, and Australia? United Kingdom, construction, hospitality and catering, agriculture, transport and logistics, truck drivers, taxi drivers, male jobs, but male jobs out in the workforce. They're replacing men out in the workforce. What about the women? Cleaning and domestic work, hospitality, care sector, primarily jobs held by women that used to be in the home. European Union, the jobs being taken by the men: construction, agriculture, manufacturing and textiles, delivery and logistics. Again, jobs that men have, American or European or the UK, guys that men have just always held all their lives. What about women? Domestic work and cleaning, caregiving, hospitality, and some textiles. These are the jobs that women used to have in the home. That's the big difference in all of these, okay? Is that the men coming here, the immigrants that are coming in, are replacing the jobs that men, blue-collared men, would have normally had to support a family, to buy a home, to have a living wage for that man and his family. These are jobs that Americans or, Europeans or whoever have held for decades and decades and decades and decades. But the immigrants that are coming over that are women are replacing the jobs that women had specifically in the homes as maids and cooks and cleaners and babysitters and daycare, so that American women or European women or whoever can go out into the workforce. And then once they're out in the workforce, they oversaturate the workforce and they force wages down. Immigration specifically hurts men, but it helps women get out of the house to go compete with men out in the work world, which is not what most men want. Most men would like to have a wife at home. If you ask me, to me, it sounds an awful lot like this immigration thing is working great for women because it allows them to go out and work and be competitive with men and earn their own incomes, and they don't have to take care of their own children, and they don't have to take care of their own house. They can hire people for it. And that's keeping men from finding wives, from finding girlfriends that are traditional, that want to be stay-at-home moms or stay-at-home girlfriends until they get married, stay-at-home wives. Why should they? Because the woman being replaced, her job in the home's being replaced, now she can just go out and do whatever. So I think this is actually hurting men's prospects for dating and for marriage. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think down below. But as far as I can tell, it certainly seems that way.